Hello, everybody, and welcome back to CELPIP Speaking Pro. This is the second half of the webinar that we started yesterday. We're going to focus on tasks 5 to 8 today, looking at how we can develop our skills to achieve at least a level 9 on our speaking test. So welcome in. I appreciate all of your positive and energetic hellos in the chat box already for Zoom. So thank you for doing that. I will remind you, your microphones are muted, but of course we will use that chat box to communicate throughout the session today. If you've got any questions about CELPIP, please put your questions there. I will do my best to answer them when I get a moment to do so. I'm also going to be asking all of you many questions because we will be doing some test practice today. And it's a really great opportunity for you to put on your thinking caps, as I say, and try to think of details and ideas that you would use to answer the questions we'll be discussing today. And I encourage you to share your ideas in the Zoom chat so you can help each other study as we go through the session together. So far, no one's mentioned anything about the sound being off or anything like that. So I'm assuming you can hear my voice just fine. If there is a tech glitch at some point throughout the session, just let me know about it right away, please, in the Zoom chat. If there's something wrong with my system, I'll fix it if I can. But if there's something going on just with your own individual system at home, the best advice I'll give you right now is to log out of Zoom and log right back in again. And that tends to reset the system, and everything should run smoothly after that if we do need to do a reset. Hopefully we won't lose you today, but at least now you've got some troubleshooting advice just in case. We will be doing some practice out loud with our speaking. That's the best way to improve, if you ask me. So remember, I said your microphones are muted. So you don't be shy. I do want you to speak up out loud at home. Nobody here will hear you. That's a good thing. But if you could have your cell phone or another recording device nearby, I'd love for you to record your practice, because when you listen to your recordings later on, you'll be in a great position to identify your own strengths and weaknesses. And I'll talk more about how you can use those recordings to develop your speaking skills as we actually get into the practice there too. Now, within the next 24 hours, we will be emailing you, and there will be 3 links within that email. The first link is going to take you to a survey, and that part is completely optional. If you want to give feedback, of course, you're more than welcome to do so. The second link will take you to a study pack of materials. And this is going to summarize the important speaking strategies that we are discussing today, but it's also going to provide for you the transcripts of the sample responses that we'll be analyzing. So you can go back over these responses at leisure later on when you're rested on your own time. Finally, the third link is going to take you to a previously recorded version of this Target 9+ speaking session. So you won't be receiving today's exact, we're not recording this session to send to you, but we do keep one master copy of all of our free webinars. They live permanently on our YouTube channel. So you can either go to YouTube and find these lessons yourself, or simply wait for this email to arrive in your inbox. And when you click on the link, it will take you to that exact same video recording. So if you can't stay for the whole session, there's definitely ways that you can watch the recording again and catch up on what you've missed. Okay, so this is me. Again, I'll keep this brief, as I think I know quite a few of you from past webinars. I'm Brandy. I'm an online instructor for the CELPIP test, and I have been teaching for the CELPIP test for just over 5 years now. I do a lot of teaching here on Zoom, sometimes on YouTube, sometimes on Instagram. So it's really my pleasure to help all of you as you prepare for CELPIP. And to meet your goals there as well. I'm currently living in Vancouver in British Columbia, although I'm from Ontario. My hometown is about a 4-hour drive north of Toronto. I grew up in a mid-sized town called North Bay, in case you've ever passed through. I'm curious where all of you are from. Let me know in the Zoom chat. I always like to see, before we jump into the lesson, where my listeners are coming from. So let me know either where you're from, or you can let me know where you are right now, either way. So I'm still in Canada, born and raised, but I've lived in 2 provinces now. Okay, wow, we have Yellowknife in the house today. I don't usually get people from Northern Canada on these calls, so that's kind of special for me. Great. I'd love to go to Yellowknife someday. I've never been. Okay, we've got lots of people from all across Canada, which of course is no surprise. We've got Nigeria and the Philippines. Where else are people coming from, or maybe where Oh, Colombia too. So South America's here. I don't remember if we had South America online yesterday. Mexico's here. Fantastic. Love it. And a Nigerian living in Brandon, as Macaulay says. Bangladesh. Wow, we've got some new locations today that were not mentioned yesterday. Sri Lanka as well. This is exciting. It always puts me in a traveling frame of mind as I see where you're all from. And Ecuador and Ghana. Wow, we're really far reaching today. Well, welcome one and all, regardless of where you're from or where you're at now. It's really nice to have you online here today. So here's our plan for the next almost 2 hours or so. This first part of our session today is going to be exactly the same as what we did yesterday, because this is a continuation of. So if you attended yesterday's session, I just asked for your patience for about 10 minutes. Frankly, I think this is still a good review for you. I'm going to introduce what your computer screens look like for the speaking test. But most importantly, we will review how your speaking assessment is going to be completed. Each of you needs to know exactly which skills you'll want to work on and demonstrate to maximize your score on the test. So we will talk about that first. And then this is the main part of today's lesson. So yesterday we covered tasks 1 to 4. Again, if you missed it, you can watch the recording that lives on our YouTube channel. Today, we're picking up task 5 right down to task 8. So for each of these 4 speaking questions, we're going to look at a real CELPIP test question taken from a past test though. So none of these questions we are talking about today will you ever see again in the future. These questions have been retired, and that is the only way that we can discuss them publicly, as you can imagine. But for each question, we're going to ourselves online using the Zoom chat. We're going to discuss some of our own ideas about how we might answer these questions. And then I'm going to play for you the recording of an actual CELPIP test taker when they gave their answer to that same question. So as a group, we're going to identify the strengths and the weaknesses with those answers as we hear them. And then I'll let you know what score these individuals received for their progress on the test. So by the time we finish today, you should have a much better understanding about what's expected for the answers themselves, but also how to achieve an intermediate level score. Again, we're targeting that level 9 if we can get up into that realm. There are 2 tasks today. You can see numbers 6 and 7. These are the 2 questions where you'll have an opportunity as well to practice delivering your own answer out loud if you choose to participate. So it gives you some pretty good, authentic CELPIP test practice today. And at the end, I always take about 3 minutes or so to quickly run down the free study materials we've got, as well as introduce you to the online bookstore. And again, if there are any last minute questions, that would also be a good time to take them there at the end too. All right. Here's your entire speaking test from start to finish. Doesn't look so imposing here, does it? Only 8 questions to get through in about 20 minutes. It's going to go quite quickly. Again, lesson 1 we covered yesterday. Lesson 2, starting at task 5. That's where we're picking up today in just a moment. But before we jump into those test questions, I wanted to draw your attention to what we call task 0. It's a practice task. So when you take CELPIP, you can imagine yourself sitting in a testing room. Each of you has to go to a testing room closest to wherever you live in the world. You can expect to have anywhere from 10 to 30 people on average in that same testing room as you. It completely depends on how many people have booked the same time and location as you have for their test. So you'll be seated in front of your own computer, of course. There will be people on either side of you, but you'll be divided from them with these little protector walls. You'll be wearing a headset, and attached to that headset is a microphone. And this is how you complete the entire speaking test. You deliver your answer, you talk out loud right into that microphone, and you're creating a recording that will be sent out later on to the human raters or examiners. There are at least 3 different raters that are going to assess all 8 of your speaking tasks. Okay, so again, the recordings get sent out anonymously. They have no idea who you are. They just listen to your answer and give you a score according to the strengths and weaknesses they hear. So this practice task is literally there just to test out your microphone and make sure it's working properly. It does not count for your score. It really takes, frankly, less than a minute just to make sure it's working fine. And after that practice task is completed, you would start with task 1 and move all the way through to task 8. Again, 20 minutes, and then you're finished the entire CELPIP test, actually, because this is the last part of the CELPIP. If you look to the right-hand side here, you'll notice we've got some time to prepare. I know it's not a lot, but usually you'll have 30 seconds to read the questions and then start thinking about your main ideas and details. You're welcome to take some quick notes if you want to. You're given paper and pen in the testing room. So feel free to jot down some ideas if you wish. It's up to you. There are 2 tasks, and we're actually going to cover both of them today. They give you a little bit more time to prepare. So 60 seconds in task 5 and in task 6, simply because there's more to read on the computer screen. So it's a little more fair then to have that extra time to read through. When it comes time to speak, you're going to hear an automated voice, a recorded voice, speak through your headset, and it will say, "Start speaking now," at which point the microphone turns on. You'll see right on your computer screen, it'll say recording. So you'll know that the mic is live. And if you look at the speaking time column, you'll see most of these questions give you 60 seconds to speak, but there are 2 of them, task 1 and task 7, that require 90 seconds of talking time. So of course, for both of these tasks, we would want to think of a couple of more details, making sure that we've filled those 90 seconds efficiently. Again, use the time allotted to you as the speaking time to really showcase the skills that you can to demonstrate, so that the raters have a good snapshot of your ability and can give you a score very authentically as well. Okay, I've got a quick question here from Arshwarya in the Zoom chat saying, do we get to hear our own responses after we've recorded them for the practice task? And the answer is no, you don't get to hear any of the recordings that you've made. But if you just have a look at what I'm showing you on screen, this is what you will see that will tell you that the microphone's working fine. Okay, so I'm showing you actually the practice task. You can see that up in the top left-hand corner of the screen. And the question that you'll answer each time for all 8 speaking tasks will be right here in the middle of the screen. So for practice task, it's really simple, as you can see, since this is just a mic test, basically. So this practice question says, talk about one of your best friends. So you would say a couple of words out loud about your friend and make sure the mic's working. The preparation time clock for all 8 speaking tasks is right here in the middle of the screen. It's going to count backwards the moment you begin. So when you see that second time clock get to 0, that's when you'll hear the automated voice say in your headset to start speaking now. You always know how much time you will be speaking because of this clock right up here. You can notice it says recording 60 seconds. So that's a heads up that you've got to have enough details there for each task to fill that talking time. Now, if you choose to skip the practice task, some people might just decide they trust the equipment's working just fine, etc. You could click the button here that says next, and that will move you right into speaking task 1. So you'll save approximately 1 minute of time by doing this, but there's no back button. So once you click next, you are moving forward, right? So we want you to be confident and ready if you choose to use this button. You also do not get to carry with you the extra time by clicking next. Every single speaking task will start with its own preset number of seconds for both the prep and the recording time. So just be aware of that. Other than the practice task, I don't see why anybody would use that next button for speaking, because the prep time is so precious and short. You'll likely want to take advantage there. So when you are speaking, whether it's the practice task or the official test, all 8 speaking tasks, this is what you will see. And this proves to you that the mic is working just fine. So the word recording tells you the microphone is turned on. Whatever you say out loud will be included as part of your answer. And then as you talk into that mic, that little gray bar will bounce gently like it's doing now, up and down over top of the icon of the microphone. So this tells you that you are speaking at a very comfortable volume. You notice how that bar is in the middle of the screen? So that's about right. You want to speak just as you're having a regular conversation with someone. Now, bear in mind, the other test takers in the room, they're all of you, including yourself, you're wearing headsets. So that's going to help muffle out the sound if multiple people are talking aloud at the same time. You won't really notice them. You'll be focused on your own test. So I thought I'd mention that. The big difference between what I'm showing you here and the real test is that the blue bar that you see on screen underneath the word recording, that blue bar is actually going to move all the way over to the right-hand side of the screen. It's the timer. So because this is a 60-second question, it will take 60 seconds, of course, for that blue bar to reach the end. So again, as you're talking, you can see this in front of you on the screen. Just keep an eye, and when that blue bar is almost at the end, it's time to wrap up your final point and offer a conclusion. All right, so that's how the tech works for the test all the way through. Let's jump into the really important aspect of scoring. So I'm showing you what I call the Raters checklist. In the English language word, we call it the Speaking Performance Standards, which is sort of the same thing. It's just a skill set check of all the categories you're going to want to work on as you study at home. The very first category up top there is called content and coherence. So basically, as we speak and develop our answers, the more interesting, the more detailed, the more examples that you can include as you speak to develop your answer, the better the quality of the overall answer, and therefore the higher the score. So that's how content works. And we're going to work hard on that aspect today throughout the session. Vocabulary is the second skill set down. And this speaks to, first of all, how accurately you're selecting the words. This is step one. I always say choose words that make sense. That's the most important thing. We have to understand the meaning. And once we've got the accuracy piece mastered, we can then start to develop our vocabulary at home. And when we study and expand our vocab, we'll likely have many more higher level or interesting word choices that are a lot more precise and specific. And the more precise your word choice, the more variety you can demonstrate, the better your score as well. Listenability, the third category down, focuses mainly on your speech delivery to start with. So of course we have to pronounce the words clearly. That's probably foundation step one. Your volume as well needs to be loud enough to be heard. Even the speed at which we speak, it has to be comfortable for you, but also for the listener. So I would call those the basics. And once we've mastered the basic speaking skills, we then really fine tune them. And this is the challenging part, I think. We try to speak from beginning to end for each of these speaking tasks without pausing for a great length of time. We don't want to just stop speaking in the middle of an idea, trying to think. We want to keep that speech moving forward if we can, so that the rhythm is quite natural. The other element here that can be challenging is we try to reduce the number of interjections. So it's natural to say or once in a while, I think, as we're thinking, but we don't want to say in the middle of every sentence. It really does become distracting. And that comes with practice, but it also comes, I think, with a widely developed vocabulary. The more words that you've got in your, I call it your brain bank, and the words that you know, the easier it is for you to think on the spot and speak naturally. So I believe these categories go hand in hand. Now, once you've mastered the speech part of your answers, we also have to think about grammar and sentence structure. The raters that are listening to the recordings you're making, they will not have a transcript of your answers, but they can still tell if you're using accurate and complex grammar, as well as if your sentences are complete and correctly formed. And once again, the more complexity, the more variety you demonstrate, the better your score will be for this particular dimension. Last but not least is task fulfillment. And this speaks to, first of all, how completely you've answered the question. We don't want to miss part of the test instructions as we answer. All the details too need to be relevant and on topic. Don't veer off and start talking about something unrelated, or it will have a negative impact on your score. Last but not least, or two more things, I guess, would be tone. So the tone is how casual or how formal your response is meant to be. And that depends on who you're speaking to. So we will address that as we get into our questions today. And then the length of your answers too is a small part of your score. So if it's a 60-second question and you've spoken for 54 seconds and you've given a really full, complete, well-developed answer, that's just fine. Nobody expects you to be perfectly 60 seconds long. All right, try to get close, but again, it's all a matter of completely answering to the best of your ability. And the final element I will mention about scoring, and this is the really important piece, is that your score does not depend on just one of these categories. So let's just say, for an example, you've got a very widely developed vocabulary and you're using words accurately. You would probably score quite well then under vocab if that was the case. But if you are performing poorly in the other three areas, so for example, let's say you didn't use any supporting details as you spoke. Maybe your sentence structure is quite simple and repetitive. And perhaps you even missed a part of the test instruction altogether under task fulfillment. So having major weaknesses in 3 areas, for an example, and just doing well in 1 is likely not going to give you the overall higher score that you were hoping for. So the best way to improve or increase your score for the speaking test would be to have this particular chart handy at home when you study, record your answers as you practice your speaking. When you listen to your own recordings, I want you to go back through this checklist yourself. I want you to make sure you are demonstrating strengths across all 4 of these categories. Also identify your weaknesses, because whatever is keeping you back, these are the areas that you want to now devote some extra study time to bring them up. Because again, it's a package deal. Think of it that way. You must demonstrate a well-balanced response covering all 4 of these categories. So I can't emphasize that enough. That's the best way to improve. And we'll go through that checklist time and again today. So I hope it will be ingrained in your memory by the time we log out. Here is, speaking of scoring, the CELPIP score chart. So at the very top, you can see the highest score that you could achieve at any point on CELPIP is a level 12. So that would indicate quite advanced proficiency in your English language communication. And each score, as you sort of glance your eyes down, I call it a score chart ladder, if you will. And each score there corresponds with a different descriptor word. We call today's session a target 9 plus, because we are really focused on the top rungs of this score chart ladder. Level 9 is what we call effective proficiency. This is your full-on intermediate level. So again, the skills we'll discuss today and the practice we'll do will hopefully target level 9. But if you can take these same skills we're practicing today and push yourself even further, it could be possible, of course, to achieve a level 10, 11, or even a 12, which would be considered advanced level. So to that end, all of the responses today that we're going to listen to, and I'll let you know right now, we've selected them specifically because these test takers earned either a level 8 or a level 9. So we're going to focus exclusively on level 8 and 9 today so that you can understand the big difference between them. Level 8 is good proficiency. As you'll see, it's a good answer, but level 9, it goes above and beyond with respect to extra interesting details and complexity. So that's where we want to be. Level 9, by the way, is what we call that minimum benchmark score for your permanent residency applications. So that's sort of a key score that a lot of you are likely targeting. And what is the reason, by the way, if I can ask and quickly in the Zoom chat, what is the reason all of you are taking CELPIP? I know I asked yesterday, so maybe you've already answered. But for newcomers today, are most of us here targeting PR? Is that why we're taking? Okay, a couple of you are taking citizenship. Okay, good. Yep. The CELPIP scores can be used for such a variety of reasons, which is why I'm asking. Yeah, so it looks like most of you are here for PR applications, which again is normal, and that's why you would need your level 9. I see some of you are applying for your postgraduate work permits. So you would need either a level 7 or a level 5, depending on if you graduated from university or college in Canada. So again, the skills that we're talking about today are above what you would need for PGWP, but I think you'll still gain valuable insight to speaking if you stay on the line. Citizenship too is about a level 5, or is it level 4, somewhere in there. But yeah, but we're still going to target that intermediate level. So hopefully all of you will have some input into that as we go through the session. So when you complete this test, of course, you're going to get your score report rather quickly, within 3 to 4 business days, alongside the score. So you'll see immediately what level you got in speaking. And of course, that's the most important thing for you at the time. But attached to the score report is going to include a little, what we call a performance profile. So every single leveled score for speaking is going to have a brief summary of the skills that somebody who is speaking at that level should be able to demonstrate, again, in general terms. So this is the paragraph I'm showing you on screen. And I've gone and bolded out or darkened the really important key concepts so we can keep them in the back of our mind and come back to them time and again today. So the details that we include as we speak are starting at the level 9 area to be more consistently complex and well-developed. So we're not just listing general topic ideas, we're taking the time to include specific examples of what we're speaking to. And again, we're going to practice this a lot today in session. Your grammar and sentence structure by level 9 as well is going to start demonstrating more consistent complexity. There will likely still be some short, simple sentences, which is fine, but most of our sentence constructions will be very accurate at this stage. And again, more complexity. So longer sentences that are connected together with a better variety of joining words and conjunctions. Even the verb tenses we use and the structures are showing a better variety. We're maybe not just using simple past, simple present. That would be a lower level skill. At this stage, we're using whatever verb tenses make sense in the moment, and we can easily adjust back and forth between tenses as needed to complete the answer. The vocab too, you're going to see, is going to once again start emerging as more descriptive, more interesting, more higher level as compared to, say, a level 8 and below. So we'll look for evidence of these skills as we go through today's session. So to that end, let's jump right into speaking task 5, which is all about comparing and persuading somebody to agree with you, which is always fun. Now, your task 5 is actually the only part of the CELPIP test that is divided into 2 different sections. So part 1, the very first thing you'll do is, of course, read the instructions on the screen, as obvious as that sounds. I want you to look, though, at the timer clock at the very top right-hand side of the computer screen. You'll notice there's only a preparation time clock here that says 60 seconds. So for part 1, for the comparing piece, you don't actually have to talk out loud at all. You're literally given a minute here to read over this information and make a selection. So of course, we would start right here. The instructions are always in blue. And this one says, you and your friend want to start a business together. He has 2 ideas. Using the pictures and information, choose the option that you prefer. In the next part, you will need to persuade your friend that this is the best choice. And then it tells you, if you do not choose, the computer will choose one for you. You do not need to speak for this part. Okay, so you would want to skim read that over fairly quickly. And really our takeaway is just that we'll be speaking to a friend in a moment and we have to come up with a business plan. That's pretty much what this whole question is asking us to do. So use those 60 seconds, have a quick look at the pictures. You can see the business option on the left here is a consignment store. And then the one on the right is a food court franchise. So take just a few, maybe 10 to 15 seconds maximum, I would say. Do a quick skim read over those bulleted points beneath each option. And then you're going to use your mouse at the computer to click on the picture representing the business option you think is the best choice for you and your friend. So in this sample response that you're going to hear, there's a real CELPIP test taker. He decided he wanted to open a food court franchise with his friend. So this was the option that he selected. Whenever we make a selection here in part 1, you're never, ever going to need to even look at the other option that you didn't choose. So my best advice for your task 5 in this first part anyway, if you can make a selection within the first 15 seconds of that 60-second prep time, it gives you, in this case, I guess, 45 extra seconds to start thinking about the details that you're going to add in order to convince your friend that the food court franchise works for you. So can we just spend just a moment? We'll do one example so you can see how you would use your prep time. So this says food court franchise. The first bulleted point talks about preparing meals for mall shoppers. So if you can imagine the food court at a mall, that's what we'd be opening for this choice. The second bulleted point talks about having knowledge of cooking and food handling skills. That last bulleted point is the startup cost, $8,000. So these are the main ideas that you will mention. It's a role play. You'll be speaking directly to your friend. So I would make up his name, whatever your friend's name happens to be. You might introduce the question and identify your choice. So let's say our friend's name is Paul. We might just say, hey, Paul, I'm so excited to open up a business with you. I've given it some thought, and I think the food court franchise in the Pacific Center Mall would be a fairly easy option. Okay, so again, role play it out. Create the names of the people you're speaking to if the names aren't included. You notice I identified the name of the mall, and I just used the one in Vancouver near me. So always draw ideas from your own life as you're speaking. It's easier. So once you've identified the choice, you're then going to have to come up with your reasons. Can we focus on the cost? We want to present this to our friend. Again, let's pretend his name is Paul, as a really easy option to open because we want to persuade him that this is the way to go. So I might say to him, you know what, Paul, it's actually not that expensive to start this business. it's only going to cost us $8,000 to open. So that's all fine and well. I've just identified a main idea, and I took that from the computer instructions, which is great, but we're not done yet. We've got 60 seconds to fill, and we know to earn that level 9 or higher, we need to give specific examples. Can I ask all of you now, maybe in the Zoom chat, you can share some thoughts. What are some very easy or inexpensive items that we'd have to purchase within this $8,000 pocket of money just to start up the business? What are some things that come to your mind? It's a food stall in the mall. So think of it that way. So Simon's first online here talking about an oven. Sure. Yep. And I would present that. And a fridge, France says. Yeah, sure. Good. I would present these as one-time purchases. Whatever you can do to really prove to your friend that this is going to be easy. So after we've said it's only going to cost us $8,000, I might add, and a lot of the main purchases at first are single purchases. We buy them once and we've got them. For instance, we will need a fridge and a stove. But again, these items are relatively inexpensive. You can make up an amount. I honestly don't know how much those things cost, but you can ballpark it. You know, we can get a small cooking stove for about $1,000. And once we purchased it, it'll be ours for a good long while. So things like this, right? So you've got your utensils, you've got your appliances covered. What other things might be necessary? And by the way, if all of you are interested, you could make your comments public facing so everyone can see them. If you address your comments just to the host, I'm the only one that can see. So it's nice to support each other. And I mention that because Burku has a great idea here, but I'm the only one that can see it. So Burku, if you could change your status to everyone, that would be wonderful. Burku's wonderful idea was about having a food safe certification. I love that. So it's not just about the appliances, right? It's also about having, we could say to our friend, you and I, in fact, already have our food safety certification. So we wouldn't even have to spend extra money to be able to serve these meals to our customers in a safe fashion. So again, whatever comes to your mind that's going to persuade your friend that the food court franchise is the best way to go. So we focus more on the cost there. I won't go through those other 2 bulleted points right now, as you can do that on your own time as you study, but this should definitely give you some thinking points as far as how you would use the prep time. If you wanted to write down a couple of ideas, like if you wrote down appliance, food certificate, etc., you can write that on the piece of paper and then speak to it as the time comes. So again, this is just thinking in your head, and you will speak about these ideas momentarily. But after part 1 is finished, the computer automatically moves you forward to part 2. And you'll notice that your option is still here. That has not changed. So the food court franchise is still the option. We're going to speak to our friend, convince him that this is the best business opportunity for us. But you'll notice now that you've got a brand new idea that we didn't see on the previous screen. And this one is a delivery service. Our friend is suggesting this as an option. So we've got, if you look at the top timer, we've got an additional 60 seconds now to read over this delivery service truck, look at the bulleted points. And again, we're going to start thinking of ways we can explain to our friend that the delivery service truck is really not a great idea. The food court franchise is so much better. So again, you're basically coming up with strengths to support the food court franchise and weaknesses with the delivery service. That would be a very effective persuasive strategy. And as a matter of fact, when you look down at the bottom of the delivery service bulleted list right now, you can see there's also a dollar amount there. And look at how much it is. $40,000 startup just to buy the large truck. So that's the very first thing I would say to my friend. Wow, if we were to open this delivery service, we would spend $40,000 off the top just to buy the truck. And then we would have so many other ongoing expenses, such as, can you finish that thought for me, please? What other ongoing expenses come with operating any vehicle, let alone a giant delivery truck like we see here? Yeah, so insurance, I can see in the Zoom chat, gas, maintenance. Those are the same 3 that I had thought of as well. So you've all listed some very practical main ideas. I now want you to push yourself further. Remember, level 9 and higher really requires lots of interesting details. So as soon as you say, there are all these ongoing costs, we could say, for instance, gas is so expensive here in Vancouver. I'm going to use my city because that's where I live. Anyone want to hazard a guess what the top price of gasoline is in Vancouver? If you don't know off the top of your head, please make something up that's logical. Does anyone live out here on the West Coast like I do? Or have you been following the news? What's kind of the highest amount that gas normally reaches at peak season? Yeah. And you can see for yourselves, you've all got slightly different dollar amounts in the Zoom chat, and it's fine. No one's going to fact check you. You can use whatever sounds logical. Yeah, I don't even drive anymore. I sold my car a long time ago because it's so expensive. But I've seen on the gas stations myself in the summertime, sometimes it goes up to 220 a liter, which is so expensive, right? So something like that would be great. If you were saying 180 a liter, I mean, that's still expensive. That's fine. Just come up with the number. But can you see if I said to my friend, gas is so expensive? Okay, it's accurate. But if I said to him, gasoline is so expensive, in the summer during peak season, we're going to top out at $2.20 a liter. And the gas tank to fuel up a large truck like the one we're purchasing is going to cost us hundreds of dollars every single week. That's just too expensive. I think we should open the food court franchise. We don't have to worry about gas or insurance at all. So that's your frame of mind as you're going through this role play. Okay, you've got 60 seconds to talk. In 60 seconds, you should have time to cover at least 3 main points, whether it's 2 strengths with the food court franchise and 1 weakness with the delivery service, and so on. So there's multiple ways that you could persuade your friend, but your ultimate goal is to give enough evidence and try to be as specific and interesting as possible to persuade him that food court franchise is the option to go for. Okay, so to that end, I'm going to play for you now this is a man's answer. He had this exact question, as we know, on his test. So he's going to explain to us, I guess his friend in a role play, why he thinks the food court franchise is better. So as you're listening, can you try your very best to try to identify the strengths and the weaknesses? I'm going to start off by asking you questions about listenability. So really focus on this man's speech. Think of things like pronunciation, his grammar, his sentence structure, intonation, all of those elements of speech. We're also going to look at his content details and his vocabulary and make sure he's fully answered the question. So be prepared to answer some of my own questions for you in the chat momentarily. So here's this man's 60-second response. Let's take a listen now.
Well, food court franchise is much better idea than delivery service. First of all, you already know how to cook since you've been cooking food for 5 years now, right? And we both know that you have back injury and you cannot lift heavy weights, and delivery service includes large items such as furniture or TVs, so it's not a good idea for your back, like for mine too actually. Also, to start a food franchise business, we only need $8,000, and for delivery service we need $40,000, and also we have to buy a large truck. We don't have that kind of money, so it will be much more satisfying to just open a food court franchise. It will be more fun to interact.
Okay, so the man, I think, got cut off right at the end there, but he actually did give us 3 ideas, so that's enough. So to answer Gurnham's question in the Zoom chat, it's not necessary to go through, I think there were 6 bulleted points altogether, right? 3 under each picture. You likely won't have time to go into a lot of detail for all 6. So again, if you could select 3 of the most important details using those main ideas on screen, that's really all you need to do. Again, your ideas might vary slightly from, say, mine or another test taker's, but at least if we've got several ideas to persuade our friend that the food court franchise is the best one, that would be ideal. Okay, and yes, France also wanted to know if those pictures are facing you as you talk. Absolutely. So those 2 pictures, you remember back, it was the delivery truck on the left and that food court franchise on the right. That's what you're looking at as you're speaking out loud. So you'll never go wrong. You'll always know which 2 options you're supposed to be talking about as they're facing you right in the middle of the computer screen. Now, I noticed Sudis has a really good point, and this is the first thing I noticed too. So you and I, Sudis, we're on the same page today. I noticed as this speaker started to talk, what I liked, what he did there, is he mentioned that the delivery service is the best choice, but he didn't even address his friend by name. So I agree with Sudis suggesting we need a name here. And because it's a friend, it's okay to be casual. If you wanted to just say something like, hey, John, you know, I've been thinking hard about which business opportunity would bring us the most success, and I really think we should go with the delivery service. So what I just said was very casual, but it makes sense to be casual because it's a friend. So we always have to choose our words according to the audience. And again, in this case, it's very casual. Yeah. So that's a very good observation. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So speaking, let's get back to the actual speech before we forget the sound of this man's voice. While it's fresh, my first question to you, I think, is super easy. I hope it is. I'm curious to see if you could understand his pronunciation. So in the Zoom chat, really quickly, could you either type yes or no? So yes, pronunciation was clear, or no, couldn't understand a word. So we're just going to go through sort of rapid fire here, some of those basic elements of speech. And everybody says yes, and I 100% agree. Even if there was no transcript in front of us, we'd have no issue there with the pronunciation. Good. I'm just going to save us the time and say that his speed and his volume were also fine. We had no trouble hearing the voice, but there were a couple of minor weaknesses with the speech. And I'm wondering if perhaps one of you is brave enough to identify a slight weakness. There's nothing here that's a huge problem, but there definitely are a few areas that are a little bit weaker that this man is going to want to work on a bit. What would you say? Yeah, and I think the speed is okay. His rhythm was fairly natural. But can you, oh, now we're kind of getting onto it. Some of you are saying something about tone. It's actually not tone, it's intonation. Bigham has it. Yeah, those two words are similar. I can see how you confuse them. So let me please clarify for you. Tone is how casual or formal the entire response is. And we've already said this can be casual, no trouble at all. And I honestly think that this man's tone is very accurate. He's casual and he's respectful and he's not bossy. So all of those things check out. It's his intonation, though, that is lacking. Intonation is when the voice rises and falls naturally. It's almost musical. I think most languages are fairly musical. So if you can hear the way I'm speaking now, I'm not consciously trying to show intonation. It's just part of when you get used to speaking any language, it happens automatically. But what I will do right now is I'm going to read out loud the first couple of sentences of this man's response, but I'm going to remove the intonation from my voice. And I'm going to try to imitate how this man read or spoke out loud. And you'll see the big difference. So I'll maybe use my laser pointer here so you can follow. So this is sort of how the man sounded as he spoke. He says, well, food court franchise is much better idea than delivery service. First of all, you already know how to cook since you've been cooking food for 5 years now, right? So can you see how that, without the intonation, is a little bit harder to grasp where the ideas begin and end as we speak, and then where the next idea begins and ends, and so on. So when we don't speak with intonation, again, you make it harder for the listener to understand how your ideas are grouped, but you also lack enthusiasm. And Iman has shared that just with me privately, but it's such a good answer. I wanted to share it out loud with the whole group. Honestly, when we don't speak with that intonation, if we have a very flat voice, we call it like you're reading in a monotone. Sometimes your listener is not going to be engaged. They might start daydreaming. They might get bored. They might not listen to you at all. So it's just really important to be aware that we do have to use intonation to help organize the speech and to keep our audience engaged. It's a sort of one of those foundational skills. And again, it comes naturally the more we practice. We don't give it much mind. So that covers most of the listenability factor, but we haven't yet talked about this man's sentence structure or grammar. So we have to do that now before we can move on to the other parts of the checklist. So at a quick glance, I don't see any major grammar mistakes. So this is a strength, but I do see a weakness with the sentence structure. All right, when we look at these sentences, most of them are about the same length. This first sentence actually is the strongest example he's got. He uses a transition. He says, first of all, so we know that his first idea is coming to explain why the delivery service works. He says, you already know how to cook. This is his first idea. And he's used this conjunction. A conjunction is a joining word. He says, since you've been cooking food for 5 years now, right? So he's got two different ideas that he's connected together correctly into one sentence. And by choosing this type of conjunction, he's actually created a complex sentence structure. And this is a good thing. You want to do this on your test. The more complexity you have, the better. But apart from that, after that opening sentence, if you even just take a very quick look at all of the other connecting words, almost all of them are and. Did you notice that? So we have and, Over here, we've got so, which is also kind of basic also. So we're really relying on these basic or simple conjunctions and transitions. There's not a ton of variety. So that would be a slight weakness just from the sentence structure perspective. Again, the grammar is fine. We understand the ideas, and that is the main thing. That is step one, definitely the most important strategy or skill to master first. But now that this man is able to create sentences that are grammatically correct, the next step for him is going to be to learn those complex structures. And once he's able to insert those into his speech, he's really going to ramp up the skill set and enter into that intermediate level. So think about these things as they apply to your own skill set right now. So I think we're good with listenability. Boy, we've talked about that quite a bit. We're going to move on now to the actual content. We already know this man has identified the food court franchise is better than the delivery service. It's a simple idea, but it's effective. We understand what he's talking about. His first content detail, he says, we know how to cook. This is main idea number one. Here is the supporting example. I don't know if he makes this up or was it on the computer screen, but either way, he says, oh, we've been cooking food for 5 years, right? So this is what you want to do. Main idea, and then back it up with some sort of a specific example. We've already said this is a really simple connection, but at least we understand when he says, and we know the next idea is about to be presented. So here's his second main idea to support why the food court franchise is the best option. He says, you've got a back injury and can't lift heavy weights. And here's how he supports that with an example. He mentions if we open that delivery service, we're going to be lifting furniture and TVs. So it's not great for the back or for mine. Okay, so again, main idea, and he has supported that with an example that makes sense. Again, this is a simple connection, but when we hear also, we understand the next main idea is coming. And this is where he gets into that dollar amount. So this is what we all discussed earlier. He does correctly mention right from the test screen that food court franchise will only be $8,000, but for the delivery service, it's $40,000. So wonderful, but there's no supporting evidence. All he needed to do here to really elevate the interest level and the description is to add in 1 or 2 examples like we all thought of. You all listed things like gasoline and insurance and maintenance. If we'd have put one of these examples here, we would have had better support. So the content makes sense, but it's a little bit on the simple side. It's maybe not quite as developed as it could be if we're aiming for that intermediate. But again, at least it makes sense, and that's great. I think the speaker was trying to come up with a fourth idea. I think he was speaking to how much more social it would be to work in the mall, but he didn't have time to develop that fully. So here's my tip to you folks. I think recognizing at this stage, we probably have 6 or 7 seconds left of time. Instead of trying to squeeze in one extra idea, it would have been better for this man to give an example of the dollar amount. He already had 3 ideas, so it's best to support those ideas rather than cram in a fourth main idea that we don't even have time to develop. So again, sometimes your timing will judge for you, I guess, how many ideas you can include. But again, content, it's a passing grade. It's definitely acceptable, but we certainly have room to develop further. Can we move on to the vocab? I'm just going to rest my laser pointer here so it's not distracting you. Can you have a quick look at the words on screen? And if there are any words there that stand out to you as particularly interesting or descriptive, a little bit higher level, can you identify them in the Zoom chat, please? I'm having a look. And again, at least all of the words are accurate. Everything here makes sense, and we're never at all confused about the idea. So this is a good thing. This is step 1. Accuracy is there. Precision, though, I'm not so sure. I'm looking at the Zoom chat box right now, and I do see you've all identified a couple of words, and those were actually the same words I had found as well. One of them was, where did it go now? Satisfying. Interact was probably a decent word. A lot of you are talking about the word satisfying. Yep, these 2 words are probably the most interesting, but there's not really a lot of other words that I would call more precise or descriptive. Again, words like large truck, they make sense, but that's quite simple, right? Instead of saying large truck, could we not just say a 20-foot cubic van? Ooh, that's interesting, isn't it? More precise. So large truck's just a little bit on the common side. And again, back injury makes sense, but it's kind of common. Could we say we both have issues with sciatica. That's a type of back injury, right? So again, if you can always think of more interesting word choices, it's going to help. So accuracy, yes, not so much with precision, I would say, in this particular response. And last but not least, we do have task fulfillment. So I would say, yes, the answer is fully complete. The raters gave him recognition for that. We've made a choice, which is food court franchise. We came up with 3 reasons why it's the better option. We spoke for 60 seconds and our tone is respectful. So task fulfillment has been done fairly well. So now that we've talked about all 4 parts of that raters checklist in quite some detail, I'm going to remind you first what a level 9 speaker should be able to demonstrate. So remember, the details should be more consistently complex. Likewise, should the grammar and sentence structure, and the vocab is going to be more obviously precise and interesting. So to that end, this is a summary of the man's strengths and weaknesses we've discussed under each dimension or category of skill. You will receive this in your study pack, so I won't repeat it to you now. You can read it when you're fresh, but I'm going to open a Zoom poll here right on screen. You should be seeing it now on your computer. Can you please guess, and this is anonymous, nobody knows your answer but you, can you please select which of these 2 levels you think the man earned for his response? Do you think he earned a level 8 or a level 9 for this particular answer, based on what we now know about level 9? And again, sometimes the first assessment's hard because you have nothing to compare it to yet. We're going to analyze about 4 other responses, and this is going to get easier as we go once you've seen some examples. Okay, that should do it. Lots of participation there. So I'm going to share the poll with you now. This is the fun part. You get to see how your guess compares to everyone else's. You're actually not that far apart. It's almost a 60-40 split, but it looks like the majority of you today have selected level 8. You believe this man earned a level 8. So I'm going to reveal the score, and I'm pleased to tell you that the majority is in the know here today. So level 8 it is. Yes, this is one way to achieve a level 8 anyway. All right, remember there are many different variations on how you could get any one score. But if I could sit with this man and try to get him to identify some weaknesses to work on that would help him reach that level 9, what I would do, and this is what you will do, by the way, looking at that raters checklist, identify the major or the biggest weakness across all 4 categories. So under his listenability, I would say to him, if you could add more intonation and work on complex sentences, that's really going to help pull up that dimension. Under the content, same thing. I would say really work on adding a specific example for each main point. Under vocab, I would say try your best not to use just common words like large truck. Go for more precision. And then task fulfillment was already done pretty well. So with those 3 weaknesses in mind, if he could add them all into his next response, that's a way to very likely increase up a full level. That's how it works. All right. Anyway, to that end, here we're going to do one more example from task 5 to make sure you've got the hang of it. Can I give you about 20 seconds just to read the question to yourself, just to be familiar with it? And then I'll play for you a woman's answer in just a second. Okay, so I don't want to rush anyone, but that was approximately 20 seconds. And by now, on the real test, you only have 60 seconds to prepare. So at that 20-second point, I sincerely hope you've at least made a choice. And in this particular example, the woman that you'll hear speaking in just a moment, she chose the large floor fan. Okay, and the reason I'm really pushing you to be a bit quick here is because if you make that choice within 20 seconds, you've got the remaining 40 seconds now to look under the large floor fan and start coming up with your specific details. So remember, we're never going to have to talk about that ceiling fan. So don't waste your time looking there. Focus on floor fan, recognize there's a price. We've got the dimensions and size of this fan. We know what it's made of. We know we can move it around. So you're already thinking about ways you can speak to your family to try to persuade them that this floor fan is the best choice. Come up with strengths. And once these 60 seconds have passed, remember how the computer moves you forward automatically. So that floor fan is still there. That is still the option that we will be speaking about. It's going to be highlighted so you won't forget. But you can now see there's a different option that the family is suggesting, which is this little handheld mini fan. So remember, you have another 60 seconds to read over those details, and you have to start thinking of ways you'll talk to your family to persuade them that the floor fan is the best option. Again, the price point is the first option listed for both fans. Here's the tricky one. If we go with the floor fan, it's actually more expensive than the mini fan, but we can't say that. If we were to say that to our family, we're actually going against our own argument, right? Can you think of a way to present the price point to your family to still have them go along with your suggestion that the floor fan is still the better idea? What would he have to purchase with that mini fan? I know it's only $449 to purchase once, but can you think again about ongoing costs there? Can you think about like how long is it really going to last in comparison? These are the things I want you to think about. Yeah. Yeah, batteries is one that's coming up now in the Zoom chat. That's how I would get around this problem. I would say to the family, the floor fan is $49.99, and because it's made of such heavy plastic, it's going to last. The warranty is good for 2 years, so we won't have to replace it. You can get away with that. And you might say the mini fan, on the other hand, even though it only costs $449 to purchase, it does require batteries, which are very expensive. It can cost up to $20 for a 6-pack. You'll need to replace those batteries often, and the plastic in this mini fan is a lot thinner. Chances are we'll have to replace that fan more often. Okay, so again, I've taken just the price point. I've developed it into a pretty convincing argument, I think, to say why the floor fan's better. And I was able to speak for, I didn't time myself, but it felt like about 15 seconds of 60. So that's one main idea with details finished. And now you've got 2 more main ideas with details to go. So that's sort of your approach here. It's really up to you as to which details you think are your strongest arguments and even what order you want to put them in. But you want to fill those 60 seconds to be as convincing as you can. Good. Yeah. Benedicta's got a great idea in the Zoom chat. I've never thought of this. You're bringing in the safety factor. Safety isn't even listed on screen, but you could certainly still draw it in because it makes sense. So you might just say, as an add-on, if you have time, the mini fan is actually not safe for children under the age of 8. And since we have a toddler running around the home, we'd best go with the floor fan. Yeah, that would be a perfect argument to throw in if you're looking to fill those 60 seconds. Excellent, excellent, good. All right, I'm going to share with you now this woman's answer. And again, we'll follow along the transcript too. By the way, I think I mentioned, but I can't remember, so I'll say it again. The raters giving you a score, they don't have the transcripts in front of them. They just listen to your recordings, and they listen many times, but they'll give you a score based on that. We are using transcripts as we studies to make it easier for you. So I just wanted to clarify that in case there was some confusion. Anyway, let's follow this woman's transcript and listen. And again, we'll go through those 4 areas of the checklist to see how well she's done.
I agree that we have choices, but I believe the large floor fan is the most suitable for our requirement because we require the fan to be installed in our basement. I agree that the ceiling fan is a good option for our living room, but since we require the fan for the basement, I would say $49.99 is an affordable option and we would not require any extra installation. The portable mini fan, though just requires a battery, is not a good option for our basement because it wouldn't cover the area. It's a good option for outdoors, but since our requirement is for the basement, I would go with the large floor fan, and it can be moved around the house and used for different requirements later.
All right, that was that. So again, to make this a fair assessment, we already know that the man earlier received a level 8. So let's analyze this woman's response in the same order so we can do a comparison between those skills categories. So we'll start with listenability again. I'll start us off, if you don't mind, and suggest her pronunciation was just fine. So there was no issue understanding the words at all. So both of our speakers so far today have had clear pronunciation. Did you notice any interjections in this woman's response? So interjections are like and Did you notice any of them all the way through? I mean, just have a look at the words on the transcript here. We always include the interjections for you to see. And interestingly enough, there is not a single interjection here, not a one. This demonstrates, I mean, she's clearly practiced speaking. Perhaps she works in a field where she speaks often or speaks English often, because it's actually quite difficult, I think, to speak beginning to end on a test without interjecting at all. So this is a major strength. The man earlier had some interjections. They weren't overly problematic. But if you're just looking at that one factor, we can honestly say the woman has a better command of the rhythm. What about intonation? That was the sticking point. Remember the man earlier spoke in a bit of a monotone. He had a flat voice without all of the extra intonation that we like to hear. How would you assess this woman's intonation? Was it natural or was it lacking? How would you describe that? Again, intonation is something that we shouldn't have to think too hard about. It comes automatically once you've practiced and understood the language. So we have to say, is it natural or is it completely lacking like it was for the man? How would we assess that? I would say, yep, looking at the Zoom chat, I would agree with everyone saying this is very natural speech. Yeah, 100% agree. I didn't see anything there to comment on as far as a weakness either. And the other aspect of this we should look at is her sentence structure again. So neither speaker had any grammatical mistakes. This is great. And at level 8 and 9, usually that's the case. We're entering intermediate level. Usually we've got at least the basic grammar mastered. But remember how the man had mostly simple sentences that used a lot of those ands and alsos. So they were kind of simple. I'm going to point out now, just starting here at the very top where the sentence begins, this first sentence finishes way down here. So it's a long sentence, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Let's have a look to see if she's accurately connected her ideas. So there is idea number 1. I agree that we have choices. Here's idea number 2. I believe the large floor fan is the most suitable for our environment. So she takes both of these ideas and she connects them appropriately using this joining word or conjunction, but. So far we have what's called a compound sentence, but she's not done yet. She adds in another conjunction. And notice it's a different word because, and here's her third idea, we require the fan to be installed in our basement. So she's got 1, 2, 3 ideas, and she has properly connected them into one compound, complex sentence. And when you look all the way through her answer, every single sentence in this response is indeed a compound complex. So we've got much more skill set development here as compared to what we saw from the man earlier, who used mostly the word and or also to connect his ideas. We've got better variety. So this is what you're aiming for. Now, that being said, the only other minor weakness that the raters commented on is even though we've got lots of these great compound complex structures, this female speaker did tend to use this particular structure often. So, but since, and but since. We always have complexity, but it's just a reminder that the raters are hoping to see as much variety from you as possible. But it wouldn't really cost her marks per se. I mean, it's a very well organized, well-developed response with that complexity that we're looking to use. Okay, so that takes care of your listenability. Let's jump to the content now. Remember in that man's response earlier, when he started speaking, he got right to the point and he said, the food court franchise is the better choice. Before the woman says the large floor fan is better, do you notice how she starts? She gives us this phrase first. She says, I agree that we have choices, but I believe the floor fan is most suitable. Why are we doing this? What's the point of starting a response with something like this? I agree that we have choices, but I believe the floor fan is most suitable. What's she doing here? And by the way, this is a strength. This is demonstrating higher level skill set. This is a good way to start. It is stronger than the way the man started. She is setting the stage for what's to come, but Sacchini is the only one that has it so far. And unfortunately, you've only shared it with me. But Mira has helped you out, Sacchini. Yeah, you both have the right idea. What our female test taker is doing is she's acknowledging her family's opinions first. She understands that not everybody's going to agree with her. So she's respecting the other people's opinions, and then she's presenting her own. This is one of the best persuasive techniques to use. to soften the opportunity for disagreement. So again, it shows an intermediate, higher level skill set. This speaks to tone, by the way. Tone is analyzed under that task fulfillment section. But I thought I'd point it out as it sort of leads into her choices. So she speaks to the floor fan. Again, her first idea makes a lot of sense. She talks about, she makes this up. She says the fan's going to be needed for the basement. So of course it makes sense. And she brings up time and again, we need to cover the whole area. The basement's big. So of course we would want to put that floor fan there. She gets away with the cost here. She says it's $49.99, but she presents that as an affordable option. Look at the vocabulary, very interesting. And then she follows that up with, and we don't require any extra installation. So she doesn't mention the cheap cost of the fan, which is the little fan. But again, she sort of mitigates or gets around that problem by saying, oh, it's $49.99, but it's affordable and we don't require extra installation. So that's a clever way of presenting this as a very viable option. Okay, can we find the third reason of support for the large fan? And then we're going to talk about the little mistake she's made. Yeah, so I pointed out the first two for you. We're talking about the space in the basement to cover. We're talking about the cost being affordable. I'm going to just rest the laser pointer right there. Can you do a quick skim read for the rest of this response? And in the Zoom chat, are you able to identify her third and final reason of support? What makes this floor fan the best option? Actually, sorry, it's right about here. I pointed out the wrong part. Yeah. Yeah, good. It's move around. Annabelle and Trixie have it. Yeah. So we're talking about moving that fan around to different parts of the house. So she's got her three main ideas. And there's not a rule that says you have to have three main ideas, but I would suggest it's probably a good number to aim for. Two just doesn't seem quite enough to really prove your point. So three reasons of support. Now, some of you may have noticed, if you look up here, she does mention how the ceiling fan would be a good option for the living room. She's speaking about the ceiling fan that was pictured on the first screen of the test instructions. She's thinking back there. So technically, we're not supposed to talk about the ceiling fan. The whole response is meant to be based around just the floor fan and how it's better than that mini fan. That's really what we should have done. But I ask you this, by adding this entire phrase in, by saying, I agree that the ceiling fan is a good option for our living room, but since we require the fan for the basement and on we go, does adding this detail in make it absolutely impossible to understand her argument that the floor fan is better than the mini fan? What's your thoughts on that? Yes, this is a mistake, but is it an important mistake? That's what I'm trying to get you to realize. So if we added details in here that made it so confusing that we no longer see why the floor fan's the better option, then it's a problem. But I don't see how that's a problem, right? We've kind of added an extra detail in that wasn't necessary, sure, but it doesn't even interrupt the flow of the piece. Like she even connects that to saying, oh, but we require this fan for the basement, so we're going to go with this floor fan. It costs $49.99. So there's still very strong coherence. So I guess the point I'm really trying to get you to think about is nobody's looking for perfection from you on the CELPIP test. It's still level 12 responses might have the odd little mistake here and there. But if the mistake that you're making is unimportant and doesn't affect our ability to understand your response and your main ideas, then I don't want you to stress about it or worry about it. The raters are not going to penalize you and say, oh, you mentioned the ceiling fan, now it's a level 2. That's never going to happen. Okay, so again, I hope that point's been made quite clearly. Content is very well supported and coherence is strong. Let's move on to vocab. Again, I'll rest my laser pointer up here. I pointed out a couple of words that I felt were quite high level. Do you have any other suggestions that maybe I've not yet mentioned? Any words that, again, we're looking for words that are accurate, yes, but that are just a little bit higher level, adding interest, adding precision. Looking at the Zoom chat, I see words like affordable, portable, suitable. I agree with all of your choices. Environment, yeah, I like this. Good. Remember how the man earlier was using words like back injury, large truck. Those words made extra sense for sure. But look at this, like do not require any extra installation. So we're putting phrases together, groups of words together that add a lot of interest and precision to the response. I did notice a little bit of repetition. Did you notice that as well? She really likes that word require, doesn't she? Require, 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 requirement. So that's a little bit too, oh, and down here, requirement, yeah, a little bit too much repetition with that one word. But overall, I think she's got a much more precise and interesting vocabulary than we saw from the man earlier. So if you had to just compare vocab, I would give the gold medal here to this woman between those two choices. The only other element left to discuss is an easy one with task fulfillment. Again, we've already talked about being extra polite and respectful. We did speak for 60 seconds. We answered the question. We presented our option. We gave 3 reasons to support it with reasons. So task fulfillment has also been done quite well. So again, you will receive this summary in your study pack. So you can review that later on. But I'm curious to see, can we relaunch that same poll that we looked at earlier? The man got a level 8. We've looked through the entire checklist and done an even comparison between both of these responses. So do you think this woman earned a level 8 or a level 9? I'll give you about 15 more seconds here to make your guesses. Fabrice, I don't understand your question when you say, do we have overall 60s? Are you talking about 60 seconds? Yeah, the first part of this response gives you 60 seconds just to make your choice and start thinking about your main details. And then the second part gives you another 60 seconds because there's a new choice. Remember that. And then when you come to talk, you're actually going to be speaking for the 60 seconds. Yeah. Again, task 5 is a bit of a step-by-step, I recognize. Yeah. Anyway, here's what you said. 89% say it's a level 9. And I'm thrilled with your results because you're absolutely right. Again, we went through that very clearly, I felt, going back and forth between the man's performance and the woman's for each of those 4 categories. And we could clearly see with evidence that the woman had a stronger skill set across all 4 areas of the checklist, which is why she earned a higher score. So just to wrap up what we were doing, and again, this goes back to what Fabrice was just asking, we do have to get our minds around the fact that there are 2 parts. In part 1, you're not speaking, you're making a choice and thinking of your details for that choice. In part 2, you have to examine the other choice presented on screen. But when you speak, you're going to be role playing to convince your listener that your initial choice is the best one. So the more focused and persuasive your reasons are, the more successful, of course, you're going to be. Okay, we're going to move on to speaking task 6, which is dealing with a difficult situation. Fun topic, hey? Anyway, looking at the top of this screen, it looks like we get 60 seconds to read. And as you can see, the instructions are just a little bit more involved. So yeah, it's nice to have an extra bit of time. So this question tells us a customer comes into the store where you work. He wants to return a shirt that is ripped. Your coworker will not return the shirt because the customer has worn it. The customer is arguing that the shirt was of poor quality and should not have ripped so easily. Therefore, it should be returned. My question to you and all of that is, who are you in the role play? We've got 3 people here, I think. Looks like there's a customer involved. It looks like there's a coworker, an employee. So who are you in this role play? Can we just clarify that, please, first, before we move on? And this is why you have more time to read. You might have to read that twice, even if you don't know. Yeah. You have to know who you are. Otherwise, it's hard to role play it out, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, good. So you are one of the employees there. Yeah. So you work, the takeaway is you work in the store. You're not the customer. That's what I want you to understand. You're not the customer. You are an employee in the store. It looks like you've got another coworker with you, but it's this angry customer that's come in. So once you've understood that, you've got a choice to make. You're going to role play this out. You have to select one of these options. You cannot finish both of them. Choose just one. So if you select the top option, you're going to talk directly to your coworker. And if that's the case, you'd probably know your coworker's name. So I want you to make the name up. It doesn't matter what the name is, but please have a name. It's as easy as saying, hi, Amy, hey, Amir, or whatever the name is. It honestly doesn't matter. And you'd have to come up with reasons why that t-shirt should be returned if that was the case. Or if you don't like that option, that's fine. You can do the bottom choice, but you'd be talking directly to the customer. And in this case, you might know the customer's name, but probably not. So I don't think it would be possible to come up with the name there, just thinking realistically. But you would greet the customer and say, oh, hi, I understand you're concerned with the quality of the shirt. Let me see if I can help you out with that. So you need to find a way to be respectful somehow. But here's the hard part there. You've got to explain why that shirt cannot be returned. Honestly, I think that would be awful. If this were my test, I'd go with the top option, but you have a choice to make. It's an either or. Since these are opposite opinions, you have to pick one and run with it. Again, 60 seconds of talking time, or sorry, 60 seconds of prep time, I meant. If you could make your choice within the first 15 seconds, just like we did for task 5, it gives you those additional 45 seconds to start thinking of your reasons. And that's what you really want to do. You could write them down if you wanted to, totally up to you. But when it comes time to speak, you are speaking for 60 seconds altogether. So we'll listen to this woman and let's see how well she has supported her own position. Let's take a listen now.
Hello, Eugene. I just heard that you had an argument with the customer regarding the with t-shirts. I think we have to return these t-shirts because as per the customer, she just wore only one times, and it is, I guess it clearly says that it's poor quality. Well, and before the other time, I remember that the same thing happened with another customer, and there was my supervisor, and the supervisor said we can refund the item when it clearly lacks some quality. And I think this brand has some warranty, so we can clearly double check with the manager. But I believe that we have to provide a warranty and provide a return for this customer as based on our previous experience. Thank you.
All righty, that would be that. So just to save us some time, I'll quickly start off again with listenability. Her pronunciation was fine. Her intonation, her volume, her speed, all of those foundational skills we have been talking about were done quite well here. There are some interjections here, and I need your opinion on this. Are these interjections problematic? We said in the man's response, we noticed some, but they weren't a problem. In the last woman's response, there wasn't a single interjection, but as you just do kind of a quick little glance through, we do notice some interjections. Are they problematic? Okay, I'm seeing an even split here in my Zoom chat. I don't think it's so much the interjections that are a problem. I honestly don't notice that many uhs or ums. What I am noticing, however, is a repetition of words, which I guess is kind of like an interjection. So if you look here, as she gets going with an idea, she says, we can refund the item. And then again here, she says, we can clearly double check with the manager. So I guess in a way, all of these repetitions, she's stumbling over her words, they do have the same effect as interjections, I suppose. They are intrusive. They're interrupting the flow. So this is definitely one of the major weaknesses from that listenability category that she's going to want to work on. The other major weakness goes along again with the sentence structure. This is an example where we do see some, I'll call them grammatical errors. A lot of it has to do with what's called syntax. Syntax is choosing the right words in the right order to communicate clearly. So if you look at the content, first of all, let's give her credit for establishing the name of her colleague as Eugene. She's very clearly summarized what's going on. You've had this argument with the customer regarding a ripped t-shirt, and I think we should return the shirt. So from a content standpoint, that's wonderful. We know exactly what the main idea is, and we expect to have reasons why. But I want you to look at the tiny little grammar mistakes. She talks about regarding the ripped t-shirts. What's the mistake here? I just tried to emphasize it. What's the problem? Ripped t-shirts. We have to return this t-shirts. You can see for yourself, right? It's the same thing over and over again. She wore only one times. You see it there? Yeah. This is a singular plural mistake. One mistake, I might chalk it up to a careless error, but the fact that she continuously makes these singular and plural errors tells me that she needs to learn that rule. So we don't put an S on a word when it's singular, meaning just one. In fact, one time, we don't even need to say that. We could say once and be done with it, right? So we've got a couple of these little tiny mistakes. These little mistakes, we know what she means. So they don't actually interrupt our ability to understand the idea. But the fact is, if we take a glance at further down, there are just so many of these little tiny mistakes that they start to add up. Even just the phrasing, when she says, as per the customer, she just wore only one times. we know what she means, but it's not a natural way to express the idea. We might just say, according to the customer, the shirt was worn once. That would be the more natural way to express that. And again here, I guess this is weak. I guess it clearly says it is poor quality. No, not really. The t-shirt lacks quality would be the better way to go, and so on. You get the point. So all the way down, we have these sort of little tiny mistakes with the wording or little grammar mistakes. And then we've also got some vocabulary simplicity. So the same thing happened. I guess it lacks quality. When we use language like this, we sound weak and not confident. So we definitely want to add more, I guess, stronger language overall for sure. But anyway, let's really ignore the grammar mistakes and the syntax issues, but can we just dive into the content? Because she does have some great ideas for content. So the fact that the shirt was worn once and ripped, that's a really good reason to take it back. It lacks quality. So that makes sense. All right. And then over here, she's talking about a precedence. So the last time this happened, I guess the manager said we could refund the item. So that's a great idea. It makes sense. And then she mentions a warranty. Let's check with the manager. If there's a warranty, we can return the shirt. So again, she's got the content details. That's not the problem. The weakness is in the phrasing and the vocabulary words chosen to express those. So once she fixes those little mistakes, she's going to definitely improve her skill set. From a task fulfillment standpoint, she speaks for 60 seconds. She chooses an option. She gives 3 reasons of support. All of that makes sense. What's your opinion on how she ended though? Up to here, I was with her. Let's check to see if there's a warranty and on previous experience. That made sense. But then she says, thank you. Cute, respectful, but does it make sense? Should we be saying thank you here, do you think? Does that make sense to you? Would you say yes or no? Is it a logical or natural way to end this entire role play? Does it make sense in the context, I guess? And I would have to agree with you in the Zoom chat. It's polite, of course, but it just doesn't seem to fit with what we were just talking about. Can you suggest perhaps a better way to close? Yeah, Trixie's wondering. Trixie wants your help. So what do you think? What would you suggest? Yeah, Simon's got a good suggestion. Oh, I hope you understand why we're taking the shirt back. Sure. Annabelle, I wouldn't ask if there's another way to help the customer because you've just clearly stated your case. And if you said that, you're now going to undo all of the wonderful work you've just done. So your closing has to more or less summarize the situation and just make sense as a final point. Yeah. Yeah, Benedicta, that doesn't make sense. You're not wishing your coworker all the best. You've just explained to your coworker that we're going to return this t-shirt because it's poor quality, etc. What would be the most realistic thing you could now say to your coworker? I'll give you another 5-10 seconds and then I'll suggest something just to get you thinking. Remember, this is a coworker you know well, so let's use casual language. You don't have to go too formal. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Nydia, yeah. Okay, Eugene, let me know if you need any assistance. Let me know if you need anything. Do you have any questions? Let me know what you think. Yeah, that's perfect. Kanchan, I hope you can make this work. I'm over here if you need me. Any of these things work, even if you wanted to ask Eugene, like Oku is suggesting. What do you think? Do you agree? Any of those ideas would be better than saying thank you. Yeah, so choose your closing. Don't overthink it, but just go with something logical for the situation. That's my best advice. Okay, so to that end, I suspect you'll be able to analyze this one fairly well. I'm not sure though, let's see. So I've just launched our poll online and let's see if you think it's a level 8 or a 9. We have analyzed, this is our, wait, 1, 2. This is our third one, I think, right? I've lost track already, but you've seen examples now of level 8 and 9. So you should have something to draw your comparison on now. All right, you've got 5 more seconds to make a guess. See what you think here. All right, yeah, okay, good. I'm not surprised to see an overwhelming majority of you, 86% in fact, have selected a level 8. And you're absolutely correct. So again, this response has all the markings of a well thought out response. Her reasoning is clear. It's mostly in the expression. It's in the speech repetition. It's in the wording that is not quite accurately phrased, etc. And a little bit of task fulfillment issue there with the closing that just didn't quite fit with the rest. But it's a good response. And just with a bit of extra studying, I'm sure she would achieve up in that level 9. So to that end, it's time to give you an opportunity to do some practice now. You definitely have lots of ideas to draw from during today's discussion. So I hope you've got your cell phone or a recording device handy. And in a moment, when it comes time to speak, I'll mention that, and hopefully you can record your answer. But here's the question that you're going to talk about. And I'll go through it quickly with you just to give you some help before you speak, in case you're still a bit stuck. So if you look at the instructions up top, it tells you that you work in a pet store and a couple comes in to buy a pet. The wife would like to buy a dog because she thinks they are friendly and playful. The husband would rather buy a cat. He says they are independent and easier to take care of. So you notice you've got some main ideas there in the question to draw from. You're going to have to come up with your specific details, though, if you want to get into that level 9 range or higher. So right below that, you've got your two choices. And this is a very standard cat versus dog type argument. In either situation, you will be talking to the couple. That doesn't change, but you have to decide which of those two pets you're going to suggest that they purchase. So can we brainstorm just a handful of ideas for each animal to give you some of your own thoughts? And then you're going to practice delivering your own answer. So if you were to explain to this couple to buy a cat, again, looking up at the instructions up top, we're told that the husband thinks cats are more independent and easier to take care of. So use that as your main idea. Low maintenance, use that as your main idea. Can you now suggest an example? What does a cat do to make it so easy to take care of? Or what is it about the cat, I guess I should say, that makes it a lot easier to take care of compared to the dog? That's the piece that's missing here that you need to come up with on your own. So cats are low maintenance. Prove it to me. That's what I'm asking you to do. Prove it to me. Doing is saying you don't need to walk the cat outside like you do the dog. Cats don't need that extra exercise, so it's actually quite a lot easier to take care of the cat. In fact, you can stay out of your home. You can go to social engagements and stay out for the whole evening and not worry about returning to the home to have to walk the cat or take it out for a bathroom break. Wonderful. Yeah, perfect. You've just convinced me right there that a cat is very low maintenance. Good. Can we switch gears just for argument's sake and give one great example for the dog? If this is the animal you're suggesting the couple purchase, looking at the instructions up top, the wife thinks the dog is friendly and playful. Can you prove that to me? How is a dog friendly and playful? What does a dog do that makes it so friendly and playful, and even more friendly and playful than a cat? That would be the ultimate persuasive argument. If it's friendly and playful, how do we know? Yeah, friendly and playful. What does a dog do to show you that it loves you so? That's what I think of when I see the dog is so friendly. What will the dog do? Yeah, look at what Duan's got in the Zoom chat here too. We can mention that the moment you've got your key in the door to enter after a long day at work, that dog is waiting in the hallway for you, wagging its tail and licking at your hand because it's missed you so much. It shows its affection. The cat, on the other hand, is probably sleeping under the sofa, right? So again, these are arguments you could use. So I've just done one example for each. In the Zoom chat, you've all got really great ideas. So please use those. A lot of you are talking about how a dog will keep you safe and secure. If they see a stranger, they'll bark and alert you. Like things like that are wonderful. You definitely can and should make up your own ideas to bring in. But again, if you're looking just at the instructions in the question as a starting point, once you've given your example there, go on and fill up the rest of the time. So 60 seconds, you should have time for 3 main reasons of support. Provide how your animal would make the better pet, and perhaps how the other animal falls short. That's the best way to go. So I'm going to advance here to the next screen. It's the same question. I'm still going to give you 1 minute of prep time. I'll set that timer at the top right-hand side. I want you to use that minute to, again, firmly select which of these 2 animals you're going to talk about as the better pet. Come up with 3 reasons why. And after that minute prep time is counted down, I'll set my timer again for a 1 minute speaking time. This is where I'd like you to hit record on your cell phone to record your practice speech so you can analyze it later yourself. Okay, prep time starts now. All right, that's 1 minute of prep. So your speaking time begins right now. You can see the timer on screen. All right, that's 1 minute of talking time. Just out of curiosity, let me know how many main ideas you were able to talk about. So maybe, again, you thought of the dog being affectionate, the dog giving you exercise, the dog keeping you safe from strangers, for example, with details. And with the cat, you might have had 3 different ideas. So just ballpark here. Let's just see how we're doing. So I'm seeing in the Zoom chat, a lot of you saying 2 ideas, some saying 3. You're in the right area for sure. You definitely need at least 2. If you only gave 1 main reason, your answer would not be considered complete. So 2 main reasons is enough, provided you've got lots of specific examples to support them. That would still be considered complete. Or you might have time then to give 3 main details with some supporting examples, maybe not quite as much for each one. But that's the idea, yeah. So at least you've got a starting point now. If you're new to timed practice, this is going to be challenging at first. So I want you to know it's normal. It takes a little bit of time to get the feel for what 60 seconds of talking time will feel like for you. So I would recommend, again, not today, we'll be tired when we log out in a half hour after the session, but later on this week and the next time you sit down to study, it might be helpful to go back to the same answer you've delivered here and give your answer a couple of times out loud in a row. And that every single time you deliver the response from beginning to end, I want you to fine tune something. If you didn't have enough ideas the first time you tried, really work on that the second time, add another detail in, and so on. So little step by little step, you're going to tweak and fine tune your response until you're confident and can speak for those 60 seconds. That would be a good goal anyways to aim for. Whatever task 6 question throws at you, remember it will be a role play. So you will be speaking directly to the person from the test question. In this case, it was a couple that came into our pet shop where we worked. So you definitely need to present your opinion. In this case, you were identifying the animal that makes the best pet. I remind you, though, that we have to give reasons in a way that are stating our facts without being bossy or rude or disrespectful, right? When you're talking to someone, you don't want to tell them exactly what they have to do. You want to be respectful while you're clearly giving reasons of support. So that's something that will help with tone. Anyway, task 6, I find task 6 kind of a fun one. I like to do the role plays. I find it easier to think of ideas as we go. Task 7, on the other hand, this one is a completely different ballgame. It's the most formal response you will give on your CELPIP test, and it's all about expressing opinions. So your question itself will be relatively short compared to the other questions you've seen. So this example says, do you think that governments should limit how much money company bosses make? So it's a simple yes or no answer. You're either going to say, yes, I do, or no, I don't. That's the easy part. But of course, the challenging part is you have to explain why you feel that way. You're only given 30 seconds to think, but you've got 90 seconds to talk. So you've just completed a 60-second role play. In this answer for task 7, you're not role playing. You're just speaking formally as if you're giving a presentation on this subject, but you have to add in an additional 30 seconds of talk time, right? So that requires more detail from you. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to cut right to the chase here. I'm going to play for you the man's response. And let's analyze this one a slightly different way, just to keep more variety here. After you've heard the entire response, can you let me know in the Zoom chat box what impressed you the most? Let's just start off by identifying the main category that you felt this man demonstrated a lot of strengths. So for you, that might be listenability, content, vocabulary, or task fulfillment. Those are the 4 areas we're looking at. So again, let me know what you thought he did the best throughout this response.
This is a very difficult question. I do think that governments should limit how much money company bosses make for at least 2 main reasons. The first one is ethical. If you provide bosses no limit in their earning, this will raise significant social disparities and will create more friction among the society. However, the limit that the government should put on the earning is not easy to determine. Competition, willingness to improve our position in career is often moved by money and earning and salary. Why someone should aim for a higher and more responsible job with more difficulties, more duties, when the money is not so significant and someone else has a limit. The governments will have to find solution to promote this cutting salaries, maintaining a significant benefit for the bosses.
All right. So let me know in the Zoom chat what impressed you the most. And let's just target the sort of general categories to start, and then we'll get more precise as we go. So were there vocabulary words that you thought, wow, that's amazing? Perhaps it was just the content details that he came up with to support his opinion. Or again, maybe it was the speech delivery. We call that listenability, right? So I'm just curious to see how well you're doing now on your own. Part of becoming a good speaker yourself is recognizing strengths and weaknesses of that skill in other people's responses, which is precisely what we're doing. So as I look through the Zoom chat right now, I see that most of you are fairly divided between vocabulary and content. I'm going to surprise you right now by saying one of you is correct and the other one is wrong. One of those skill sets was done quite well, and the other one was the absolute weakest part of this response. Can you now guess which is the one that was done really, really well between vocab and content? Have a look again. Think about what you just heard. Put it all into context in the big picture. Yeah, the one that was quite well done is vocabulary. Content is the weakest part of this response. I'll explain more about what I mean right now. So if you're just looking, again, before we dive into the vocab, perhaps we should look at the position. How he starts this question is maybe not what I'd recommend. This is what I call an inside voice. Yeah, I agree with him. This is a difficult question, but we don't need to say that out loud as part of our CELPIP response. So I would just cross that out if I had a magic marker. We get right to the position, and you'll notice that this speaker did read the test instruction right from the screen, which isn't ideal, but if you're stuck on the spot and just don't know what else to say, it's a last resort. So at the very least, at least we know what this man feels. He says, I do think the government should limit how much money company bosses make. I think he should have stopped there. I don't want you to say for at least 2 main reasons, because until you start speaking, you honestly can't predict how many reasons you'll have. So I wouldn't even bother saying this. I would just present my opinion so it's clear and then get into the reasons. I think that would have been a stronger opening. So his vocabulary is really, really strong. As you can see, look at the word choice, ethical. The sentence structure is really weak. It's very short and simple, but at least we know his first main reason for why the government should put a cap on the salaries of bosses is ethical. And his reasoning is really high level and sound. Again, amazing vocabulary. There will be significant social disparities, meaning there's going to be a lot of pretty much hard feelings or hurt feelings, friction or tension. Rather than among society, this is vague, he probably should have said between employees working in the company and the top level executives from the same company. So just imagine that for a moment. Imagine you're working in a company making $50,000 a year, and then the boss of that company is making 6 figures or $500,000 a year, and you don't perceive the work of the boss as being much better than your own. So when there's such a huge difference in salary, what this man is arguing is, of course, there's going to be these social disparities and tension. It's going to create stress and so on. So I love this first idea. I think it makes great sense. And it definitely highlights some very precise and interesting word choice. Where the content falls apart is here. When you see the word however, what does that word tell you? What does it mean? All right, we've just said, oh, we better cap the boss's salary. Here's the reason why. If I wanted to add another reason why we should cap the salary, I'd probably say additionally, or another reason why, blah, 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 blah. But no, we said however. And when you see however, yes, in the Zoom chat, Annabelle, Donna, and Ashaya have it. This is a contrasting word. So when you see that or hear that, you know that the idea that follows is going to be completely the opposite of what you've already laid out. So this man, I'll use a casual expression, this man shoots himself in the foot. It's a terrible expression that means he completely undoes the wonderful work that he's just started out. All of a sudden he says, oh, but however, we should limit the government, or the limit that the government should put on is this. Basically, his argument boils down to, why would anyone want a higher, more responsible job with more duties? So why would anybody want to become a boss, he's saying, when your money isn't as significant, when you're not making as much money? So this would be a great argument to make if his opinion was, oh, we should let bosses make as much money as they possibly can, right? So again, there's no task fulfillment's weak. We've only really got one reason to support our opinion. And then the coherence of the piece is confusing because by the time we get to here, we recognize this is an opposite argument to this. So we're not even clear anymore what this man's main idea is. So despite the fact that he speaks through for the 90 seconds, which is great, despite the fact that he's got some very notable vocabulary and his pronunciation's clear, etc., minus the few pauses he made, his pronunciation was fairly clear. He really undoes an otherwise good response. So responses like this are incredibly difficult to score because we see some amazing strengths, but we always also see rather some very glaring weaknesses. So I'm curious to see how you would assess this one. I've just launched the poll online here in Zoom and I'm curious to see. So let me know if you think it's a level 8 or 9. Again, none of us are raters, myself included. I'm an instructor and I can certainly tell you what goes into a strong response. But as far as rating goes, we have to remember that the raters giving a score for the speaking test are trained, experienced, and they would know what to do with this type of a performance. I wouldn't want to be a rater for this response because I can see the man has such great skill, but he just doesn't even answer the question fully. So it's a tough one for sure. Anyway, here's what you said. So about 2/3 of you are leaning towards the level 8 versus the level 9. And you're actually correct. Yeah. So this one, I have all the confidence in the world that this man could achieve a level 9 just based on his ability to put together that first really high level thought and reasoning and the vocab and his speech, etc. I'm sure he could, but he obviously needs to answer the question, give at least 2 reasons to support his opinion and connect the ideas together. Those are major, major mistakes that did make it confusing for us to understand, which is why it had a negative effect. Yeah, so good try almost, but just not quite, I guess. Anyway, to that end, let's see how well you do with a task 7 question. And I promise you the question you're getting is a lot easier than speaking about government and salaries. I'm going to advance to the next screen and I'm going to start the 30-second prep timer right away. I'm not going to help you at all. I want to see what you can do on your own. So you'll have 30 seconds to read the question, pick your opinion, and start thinking of reasons why you feel that way. When it comes time to speak, remember you're speaking for 90 seconds this time. Try your very best to come up with 3 reasons of support to fill that time and record your voice if you'd like. Here's your question. Prep time has just started. All right, prep time's finished. So please hit record on your cell phone and deliver your answer. Start just by identifying your opinion and building it from there. Here we go. And that's it. So that is 90 seconds. So hopefully you had at least 3 details, I would say, to express why you either think it's a great idea for students to have that second language or perhaps not. I don't know which position you selected. Always go with the easier one, right? To support, make sure you've got lots to talk about. Anyway, we don't unfortunately have time to share all of the thoughts that you came up with, but what I will do now is play for you an answer by another CELPIP test taker who actually had this exact same question. So as she's speaking, you might recognize some ideas there that you might have had some of the same yourself. So we'll follow along with her transcript and see how well she's done.
Yes, I think it's very beneficial for high school students to be required to learn a second language, especially here in Canada, to learn French. I've seen it in the workplace. It's very beneficial for workers to have a second language, especially French, because first thing, more compensation if you're bilingual, French bilingual. Right, that's first thing for me, and of course it opens up a whole new like field of work where you, if you're not bilingual or you don't have a second language, you will never be able to enter. So that opens up different opportunities. Also, not even in just not opportunities in Canada. You also have the option of to work for the federal government, which is very good as well. And also, if you have plans of going abroad, going out of the country to work or to study, it's very beneficial if you know, at least understand a little bit the second language, right? Not some, of course, if you're going to be working and you're going to be using a second language, it's very beneficial if you're fluent in it. But some people, if you're just like visiting other countries, going on vacations, it's beneficial if you at least learn the basics or know the basics.
All right, there we have it. So 90 seconds done, just like that. Her pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm are fine. She interjects now and then, but it's all natural. There's nothing there that's really holding us back. There's a slight little self-correction, and it's not a problem per se, but I wanted to point it out in case you make a little mistake. This is exactly how to fix it. So as she's talking, she starts with an idea. She says, not even in Canada, and she catches herself like she said something wrong. So she pauses for just a second, and then she corrects herself. Just not opportunities in Canada. And she continues. So if that happens to you, if you say the wrong word or get off track, this is exactly how to fix that. Just pause for a split second, make the correction, and move on. Now, because we've only had that one self-correction, it's not going to impact the score. But if you did that over and over again, then yes, it becomes a problem. We still want to talk fluently from beginning to end. But I thought I'd point that out. The raters were happy with, again, there's no grammatical errors. The only thing the raters said for listenability per se is, again, we've got some fairly basic sentence structures. We use a lot of the words and also throughout. So there wasn't a lot of complexity there or variety. But apart from that, the coherence is definitely strong. Can we get right to the content? And then we'll look at the repetitious vocabulary that you're all jumping on. Content first and then vocab. So she, as well as that last man, she reads the instructions right from the test screen. I don't love that approach. But again, if you're stuck on the spot and it's all you can do, it's better than nothing. At least we know what her opinion is. So she says, I think it's very beneficial for high school students to learn that second language. What I love about her answer, what makes it a little bit higher level, is that she focuses this whole experience on herself. She pinpoints Canada learning French. She even says, yep, it's the first thing for me. First thing, she says, you're going to have more compensation. This is an excellent choice of vocabulary. It just means you'll make more money. More compensation if you're bilingual, French bilingual even for her. So look at all of these wonderful vocabulary words. Bilingual means you speak 2 languages. That's what that word means. French bilingual, she's already focusing on the fact that for her, she lives in Canada and obviously she speaks French. That's what she's just told us. And as she's speaking to us in English, we can assume she speaks English and French, bilingual here in Canada. And the reason she mentions that specifically is because her second idea is talking about work. And she doesn't just say you get more work opportunities. She uses a very natural expression. So wonderful vocab. It opens up a whole new field of work. And she gives a very precise example of how you can use English and French in Canada. And here is that very specific example. And it's true. If you wanted to work for the federal government in Canada, you would have to speak English and French, as those are the two official languages of this country. So it's a way to showcase or frame the entire question and answer around your own life experience, if you've got that knowledge. I think she does that beautifully. Up until here, I was really impressed. The last part of this, her idea makes sense. And her vocab, again, is wonderful. If you go abroad, she says, and she specifies, I guess, for work or study. The main idea is wonderful for why we should have that second language, but she keeps repeating the word beneficial, which a lot of you noted in the Zoom chat. All she says is it's beneficial to know the second language. It's beneficial if you're fluent. It's beneficial if you know the basics. She never comes right out and gives us a reason how having that second language, if you're out of your own country, would help. Any specific and relevant experience here would be better. Could we just say, for example, you could order food off of a menu in a restaurant if you spoke an additional language. You could communicate with the locals and ask for directions if you were lost. You could hail a taxi and communicate with the driver so you know where your final destination will be, and so on. So even just coming up with one practical way that additional language could be used out of the country, that would have strengthened the final part of her response. So yes, it's a weakness. That last part doesn't hold up as well. But remember, the score is based on the big picture. And up until there, wow, were we impressed with strong coherence, a position that was stated and supported earlier, two very logical main ideas with lots of precise support, and tying it into her own life experience, right? So we've got a lot of definite, strong skill development here and presentation, with some minor issues or hiccups that we want to strengthen. So what do you think about this one? I've just launched again the poll. Let's tidy up this task and we'll move on to the final one for the day. So is it a level 8? Is it a level 9? Her voice too, by the way, was quite bouncy and energetic and quite engaging to listen to. If she could tidy up her sentence structures a wee bit, make them a little more complex, it would be even better. But right now it's already pretty strong. And the raters were pretty impressed, I think. Yeah, so overall, and I'm pleased to see actually, about 3/4 of you right now are assessing this at a level 9, and that is exactly right. A level 8 speaker wouldn't have had the ideas that she did. They wouldn't have thought to mention about how I'm bilingual in Canada, speaking English and French, and you could work for the federal government if you're bilingual here. Level 8 would not probably be at the level to think of that type of detail, but by level 9, these are the types of details that are starting to work their ways into our responses. So it's something to aim for anyway, for sure. Yeah, good. Okay, let's move on. Let's summarize this and move on. We've got one final task to complete. So task 7, again, it's likely the most formal answer you'll give because it's almost like you're giving a presentation. It's a 90-second presentation. You're stating your opinion, you're backing it up with reasons why you feel that way. So again, your language will be a little more formal as well. Every reason you give should be supported with examples. That's the best way to fill 90 seconds, but it's also the best way to really develop the content and also showcase some interesting vocabulary choices, which this woman did quite well, except for repeating that word beneficial at the end. That was the major weakness there. But overall, it was pretty darn good, if you ask me. All right, let's finish here. We're running short on time. So speaking task 8. This is the last question of the speaking test and the last question of the entire CELPIP test. This one says, describing an unusual situation. It is a picture task for those of you that enjoy working with visuals. So this is how it's done. It's a role play, and your instructions are going to give you 3 simple tasks to complete. You have to complete them all to get a full complete answer here. So we are told that a new friend invited you to visit his home. So the friend is a man, we've learned. It says you think you found the street where he lives. However, you cannot find his house. Call your friend. So this is the first thing you have to do. And this is so easy. Hi, Kevin. Like literally, that's all you're doing, making it like you're talking on the phone. Explain in detail where you are standing. So this is the part of your answer that takes up the most time. You're going to look at this picture in this case, and describe the most important features. And then you have to ask your friend how to find his house. Don't forget to do that. That could be the way to end this whole conversation. After you've explained the scene, you could ask for directions. You have to include those 3 steps in the answer, as I say, in order to get full marks for task fulfillment. So use the prep time to move around the picture and try to describe things that you think would help your friend direct you to his house. Some of you might want to talk about this underground parking garage. There's even a yellow sign above the garage door that has the word slow on it. I guess you could bring that in. This we call a dumpster. That's the word in Canada anyway. If you don't know dumpster, you could say a very large garbage container, but this is not a garbage can. A can is the small item you put under your desk at home, but this is a garbage container or probably a dumpster. At some point in your answer, I think you'd have to explain the houses, right? The whole point is to ask for directions to your friend's house. What words can you think of that would be interesting to describe this house? The first step in a simple way would be, I see some blue houses on either side of the road. That would work, but again, it's very simple. Rather than say blue houses, you could say, what else could you say? Townhouses, you could say, that's come into our Zoom chat. What else might you say? A bungalow. Nora is sharing that with me privately, unfortunately, but it's a great word. Townhouse again, we've got, sure. Any other words come to mind? Could you say row house? I think you could say row house. Could you say duplex? Do you know that word? A duplex is when you have sort of 2 houses side by side, sort of like what this picture looks like. You could even get fancy and talk about how there are sliding patio doors in the back of these townhomes with purple curtains hanging in the windows. Like you could take it to that level. And boy, would you ever get some good recognition for your description and your vocab and your content. So yeah, blue house would be a starting point, but try to elevate that a bit more. Even townhouse would be better. I would not talk about the lamppost because I don't think it's that important, but you could if you absolutely wanted to. You will not have time to describe everything in this picture. So pick and choose according to what you believe is most helpful. You might describe the red Canada Post mailbox because it's the only one in the picture. You could say, oh, I see a red mailbox on the right-hand side of those bushes. Something like that might help. What do you call these items here? I call them speed bumps. That's North American, I believe, but depending on where you grew up in the world, you probably have different ideas here. So speed bumps is the common terminology in Canada. What else do you call them? Speed breakers. Yeah, I've seen speed breakers. I've heard that from, I don't even know from where, but I know other parts of the world refer to them as speed breakers. If you don't know the actual word or you forget the word, you could just use your own language. You could say, there are yellow bumps placed across the road in order to slow down traffic. Like if you had to describe it like that, you could. But try your best to come up with the word. And you know what? This is how I would start. I would say something like, hey, Kevin, I'm looking forward to seeing you today, but I can't find your house. Could you please direct me? I'm currently standing at the bottom of this long winding road that's extending off into the forest in the trees in the background. On both sides of this road, I see long rows of blue townhomes and so on, right? So you're going to keep talking for about 60 seconds. And keep in mind, I've already greeted my friend. I've already asked him for directions. So I got that out of the way right at the beginning, so I didn't forget. And the rest of my answer would be describing. Right at the end, I'd probably say, hope to hear from you. Can't wait to see you. Something like that would probably work there. So I'm going to play for you this woman's response. And right away, after it's finished playing, I'm going to launch the poll and see if you can accurately assess the score all by yourself before we even quickly talk about it. So I want you to tell us, is it a level 8 or a level 9? We'll see if you're accurate. Here we go.
Hey Ritu, how are you? Hey, I'm exactly near to your house, but I'm really not sure where I need to move. It's on the right side. I have to take the right street or the left street. I'll just explain you a little bit so you have an idea where exactly I am. I can see a board on which it's written SLOW. It's a yellow board with a black written on it, and there's one garbage bin near to it, and it's open, and I can see there's a big townhouse, and down the townhouse there's a parking lot, and there's so many trees across
the road which I can see. So I really feel, just tell me, is it the right place I am on, or do I need to take a different street? And I can tell you this route goes exactly towards the right, and there are.
Okay, so she got cut off at the end, but she'd given a fair bit of description, so I wouldn't worry about being cut off there. Again, I'm going to launch the poll on Zoom. I really want to see what you can do on your own now. We have talked like just so much today, all about the 4 areas of that Raters checklist. They all have to be assessed before you can come up with the final score, but let's see what you've learned. Put it all together. And the more accurately you can identify levels from other people's examples, I would like to assume the more accurately you'll be able to then demonstrate the right level of skill set in your own answers, which is partly why we're doing it this way. All right. Are you ready for the big reveal? So I'll show you your results as you've just voted. You've got about 2/3 of you here are thinking this is a level 8. So once again, the majority is in the know. Yeah, this is definitely a level 8, definitely a level 8. And I'll explain very briefly why. Okay, again, with her speech, the pronunciation's usually clear. There's just 1 or 2 words we couldn't quite catch, to be honest. But overall, most of the pronunciation was okay. There were a couple of pauses that affected the flow of the speech a wee bit, and the sentence structure is definitely simple, which is common at the level 8. We don't see the complexity that we did in some of our other level 9 examples today. I think one of the areas she could work on more to improve, I like how she identifies her friend, asks him how he's doing. She does get the idea across that she's lost and needs help. But again, just look at her wording. I'm exactly near to your house. I'm really not sure where I need to move. So right away, we can see that the syntax or the accurate word choice is not quite there. It's close, but we're not speaking in exactly a natural way yet. And then the descriptions that she gives, albeit some of them are accurate, they're maybe not the best choices. The first description she gives, she says to him, I see a board and it's written SLOW on that board. And imagine you are writ to on the phone and your friend says to you, there's a board with SLOW. Your friend probably doesn't have a sense yet of where you are. And then the next detail we get is that there's a garbage bin that's open. Well, I don't know about you, but I live in the downtown of Vancouver and there are garbage bins on just about every corner. I don't find that very helpful. It's not specific enough. We finally get to the townhouse. This is so important. But again, it's the wording that's just not quite accurate. It's close, but not there yet. She says down the townhouse is a parking lot. Not quite. Underneath the townhouse is a parking garage, right? That would be accurate. So again, we're always sort of on the right track, but we're just not quite accurate yet. So all of these reasons together are demonstrating why it's a level 8. She gives enough that she completes the picture. She does technically complete the task. She did ask for directions, but we have a wee bit more development to go, I guess, to get this to that level 9. And the very last one I'd like to analyze with you today, same thing. It's a different task 8 question. This time we're at a tourist site and we see these street performers. So we have to call our friend Katya. We have to describe in detail what these 2 performers are doing and then ask Katya if she wants to join us at the event. So as soon as you've listened, I will launch a poll and you can vote to see what they scored.
Hi Katya, do you hear this music behind me? I'm in a park somewhere downtown, I don't know, basically, and these street performers are actually having a really good band, and the instruments are, of course, glasses filled to different volumes, and a percussion set made of garbage cans or, you know, buckets, plastic ones and metal ones, and it actually, you wouldn't believe it, sounds very good. I hope you can hear something, anything. They've been going at it for hours. We actually passed through here 3 hours ago and they were doing the same thing, and it is such a good soundtrack actually for the entire city, for a day in the city. It's great. Check them out. Probably there's a YouTube or something.
Cute. I love his intonation. He sounds excited to be there. Did you notice that? And he's supposed to invite his friend to join him. So I think that was perfect. Anyway, here's your last poll of the day. Give it a score. Is it a level 8, a level 9? Consider, again, not just his speech, but also the vocab, the details. Like, did he go into a lot of fairly descriptive description there? Descriptive description. You can tell I'm getting tired. Did he have a lot of descriptive detail, I should have said, to really paint the picture for Katya, to encourage her to want to come down and see this band? That's what he was trying to achieve here. Right. Okay, good. So this one, the way you rated, here are your results. We have an overwhelming majority. So 80% of you are suggesting this is a level 9. And you're absolutely correct. Yes, you could see for yourself, or hear for yourself, I guess, how much more detail is in this response as compared to the woman's we just heard, right? So again, he also addresses his friend by name. You know, do you hear the music? He identifies, first of all, where he's from, where he is rather. And this is partly where the woman went off track a wee bit. She didn't anchor the scene. This man does. He says, I'm in a park somewhere downtown. He introduces these performers, but look at the level of detail. When he says they have instruments, he explains their glasses filled to different volumes. And then when he talks about the drum kit, he uses some decent vocabulary words. Percussion set. He describes them. They're made of garbage cans. And he even gets into the material. There's plastic, there's metal on the buckets, and so on. He does have some natural expressions. They've been going at it for hours. It's a natural way to say they've been playing for quite a long time. And this is my favorite part. He says to his friend Katya, the music is such a good soundtrack for the entire city. He's comparing, this is poetic in a way. He's comparing the music these performers are making to the soundtrack, almost like a movie soundtrack. So clearly he's enjoying himself. And this is what makes it sense when he says, check them out. That's his way of inviting her down. He does have the odd mistake, like there's a YouTube or something. We know what he means. Oh, there's probably a video on YouTube, things like that. But overall, you can easily see, I hope, the difference in the level of description and the interest level as well, and even the organization in this second piece. All right. All right. We are quite a bit over time today, but I always like to play you one level 12 response just so you can hear it. I'll play this through for you. We won't analyze it, but you will get the transcript contained in your study pack. So you can go over it later on at leisure. But this is a level 12, just for fun, in case you're curious.
Hey, Katya. So I'm standing outside the Caplano suspension bridge. I'm really excited to see it. But right outside, there's these two street performers who are really amazing. One of them is a bucket drummer. So he's taken all these kind of household implements and containers, and he's using them as drums. And he's doing a really great job. And in this musical arrangement, he's being accompanied by another guy who has wine glasses with different levels of water. Because you know how, the trick where a glass filled with a different level of water creates a different note. So he has all these glasses in front of him. And he's also playing beautiful music. And he's accompanying the bucket drummer. So together they're creating this amazing rhythm. And I think you should definitely come see it if you'd like to see it, because I think they're going to be playing for.
Okay, there we go. And again, you'll have the transcript in your package that you can go through as well. So that's one example of a level 12. So whatever picture comes your way for task 8, just know that there will be 3 little steps involved. Again, usually it's addressing your friend. Sometimes it's asking for directions. Sometimes it's inviting them to an event, etc. So just follow the instructions from the test screen. Focus your attention for the most part of your answer on describing the very important parts of the scene using the most precise and interesting vocabulary you can manage. That would be an area to really target here for task 8. All right. Anyway, we are finished. Overtime, but we're finished. I'm going to quickly run down our study materials, starting off by again reminding us that you can take CELPIP if you are applying for those postgraduate work permits. I think we all know that, but I thought I'd remind you. We do have other webinars. The schedule is currently posted. We go month by month, so you can look ahead to the end of March and you'll see when these webinars will be posted there again. They're all 2 hours long. They're all free. You just need to simply register so we can send you the Zoom link, just like we did today. And this is also how we can email you the study packs and the link to the recorded version of the webinar. So that's what that's about. Our YouTube channel, the name of the channel is CELPIP Official. You will find, again, all of the one master copy of each recording of our webinars is there. We also have different study tips series. We've got the CELPIP live series as well. So we still go live every second Thursday for this, but all of our live presentations, we also record and post to the channel. So you can peek through there when you have time and energy and look for more free study materials. If you are looking for more examples of speaking or writing responses by real test takers, you can make your way to our celpip.ca website. At the very top, you'll notice those 5 menu options, and it's the second one that says Prepare for CELPIP. When you click there, you'll find this. It's called the Score Comparison Chart. So you get to decide which level you'd like to view. Here's an example of level 9. And you'll be able to either listen to the recordings like we did today of the different speakers giving their test or taking their test. For writing as well, you can see the question and read the responses. You will get the little summarized notes from the raters that gave them the score to tell you exactly how well they did. So what are the strengths and weaknesses using that same checklist we looked at today. So it's just a really great way for all of you to become more familiar with the skill sets you'll need to demonstrate for whatever level you're targeting. Again, that's different for all of us. And last but not least, I do remind you, we've got 2 free practice tests available right on the website, celpip.ca. And if you make your way to our bookstore at some point, you'll see the link at the bottom here of the screen. You can make a purchase if you're looking for more paid products. So we do sell additional practice test sets. We currently have 13 sets available, and each set contains 2 tests. There are online courses and study guides and you name it. So take a peek. I'll let you do that at leisure when you're more rested, etc. And we do have sales from time to time as well. So in fact, if you were to, probably the easiest way to be notified of upcoming sales would be to subscribe to the Instagram channel. You see it listed here at the bottom. And we always, of course, post in advance when the sales are coming up. So that might be a good way to know. But these 4 social media channels, we do have free content that is posted there. So they will definitely help you out if you wanted to continue your studies. A reminder that we go live on YouTube with our CELPIP live show every second Thursday. Our next episode is this week on Thursday at 9:30 Vancouver time. It's going to be an episode about reading if you wanted to join us for that. And again, all of our past episodes are posted online. We hop onto Instagram one Monday of every month as well to answer your questions. So again, you'll be notified in Instagram when that's about to happen. And last but not least, at the top is the email address for customer service. So especially if you've got questions about things like test registration, etc., that would be the best place to go. They can help you out with things like that. All right, so we got through it all. Definitely kept you longer than I should have, but I feel like we have accomplished a lot today. So I do thank you for your efforts. I thank you for sharing your thoughts in the Zoom chat there too. And I really hope you've got an excellent day planned ahead wherever you are listening to. I'll see you maybe for the next webinar. Take care. Bye-bye.